This is the Minnesota Tim podcast. Thank you for tuning into the podcast today. There is one conversation happening today, and one only among Minnesota sports fans. And that conversation is who is going to replace Kirk Cousins and be the Minnesota Vikings long term starter for the rest of this season. That conversation, my take, is coming up on who that player should be on this podcast.
We're not goons. We're not bullies. No matter what people say or do, we have to be ourselves. You.
Guy Germain,
From where?
St. Paul, Minnesota.
Les Averman, Brooklyn Park, Minnesota.
Charlie Conway, Minneapolis, Minnesota.
And I'm Gordon Bombay, Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Minnesota! From the lakes of Minnesota.
Lots and lots of quarterbacks being thrown out there for the sake of conversation. I've seen Minnesota Vikings fans DM Tom Brady and ask him to come out of retirement. He has a place in Minnesota. He's got family in Minnesota. And honestly, if I'm Tom Brady, I honestly don't think it's like the dumbest thing in the world. You've got some of the best weapons in the league. The offensive line has protected Kirk these last 2 weeks. One against the 49ers, one against the Packers, both with elite rushers. The Packers just signed this Beard guy to like $1 zillion. If I'm Tom Brady, I look at this situation and I seriously consider it. However, let's throw Tom Brady's name out of the hat because he's working on becoming the owner of the Las Vegas Raiders. And if he was going to come back, he probably would have came back in the preseason, in training camp, and joined the San Francisco 49ers roster because he has ties to Shanahan, he has ties to the Niners organization, and that's where he wanted to play. But he's not playing. Tom Brady, he's not playing for the Minnesota Vikings. It'd be sweet, it'd be amazing, but it's not going to happen. There are two names that I think are the most realistic options. And there are two names that I think are the most likely and the best option for the Minnesota Vikings. The first name on my list, and this name has magic. This guy's middle name is Magic. Case Keenum. You go back a couple of years ago, he had the miracle against the New Orleans Saints. And there's a little nostalgia with this name. But I want to look beyond the 2017 season. Because Minnesota Vikings fans are familiar with Kirk Cousins, with Case Keenum. 2017, the throw to Stephon Diggs, the run throughout the regular season, 22 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. He signed the big deal with Denver. Minnesota didn't let him return. They signed Kirk Cousins instead. With Denver, it wasn't much of a success. He was only there for 1 year. But he had 18 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. That's not the worst year I've ever seen from an NFL quarterback. That's not bad. That's not the money he signed for. That's not the guy that they wish that they got, but that's not bad stats. Completion percentage 62%. They go the next year with Washington, 11 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Case Keenum is efficient and he's effective. All seasons he's played as an NFL quarterback, he's had efficient numbers. In 2017, he had a 67% completion percentage. In 2016, he had 60%. In 2015, he had 60% again. Case Keenum, not only is he magic in a bottle, but he's efficient. And when you analyze the Kirk Cousins replacement. A huge part of you has to look at which player has the most boom potential. Because you're looking to grab a rabbit out of a hat in this situation. Any player you sign, any player you trade for, unless it's like Kyler Murray or something, or Ryan Tannehill, you're just looking for some guy to come into your organization and create magic. Because in all likelihood, your season's over. Even despite the easy schedule coming up here. And if you think that guy is Jaron Hall, go at Jaron Hall. But it's certainly not Sean Mannion. It's certainly not Carson Wentz. It could be Matt Ryan, but he's not my second name. Case Keenum is my first name because of his efficiency, because of his magical attributes, and he fits the bill. You need to pull a rabbit out of a hat, and Case Keenum has done that throughout his career, and he's stepped into roles just like this one. He is the perfect backup quarterback. You know what you're going to get from him. He's going to be efficient for the most part. He's not going to throw tons of picks. And with the wide receiver core the Vikings have, Case Keenum might be able to find magic in a bottle once again. I considered Carson Wentz as one of my names. But besides the MVP season that he had several years ago, when the Eagles won the championship with Nick Foles as their quarterback, Wentz hasn't really done much in his NFL career. He had 27-7 with the Colts the year before Washington. With Washington, he wasn't very good. He's got a terrible win-loss record. So Carson Wentz, as much as I love the come back home to the Midwest story, Carson Wentz is not the guy. So Case Keenum, number one. My number two, and I said his name already, Nick Foles. Nick Foles is a magic out of the hat kind of guy. And he's also an efficient quarterback. 2018, he had 72% completion percentage. 2019, 65%. 2020, 64%. 2021, 68%. And 2022 with the Colts, 59.5%. Nick Foles, I mean, look at the year he won the championship and got his statue built outside of Philadelphia. He's another guy that can come in and step into an organization and create fireworks. What I don't want is a Colt McCoy to come into the Vikings organization and dink and dunk their way and somehow allow the defense to win games. One, even though the defense has been spectacular these last 2 weeks, that's not the way the Vikings are built. They're not built to win that way. They are built to have an explosive offense, and they are built for the defense to make plays throughout the game, but not to carry you. And Nick Foles, Case Keenum, they can step into an organization and create fireworks. They can create magical plays on offense. They have a little like Brett Favre magic in them. They have a little gunslinger in them. And that's the only thing that's going to save this Viking season. Dinking and dunking, throwing it to the open guy, managing a football game. That's not what's going to get it done. I don't want that type of quarterback throwing the ball to Justin Jefferson or Jordan Addison. We need a guy who's going to just come in, just throw the crap out of the ball. We need a fearless quarterback to step in to replace Kirk Cousins, because that's how you're going to win games. And, you know, you bring in a decent quarterback like Colt McCoy or Carson Wentz, and that's exactly what you're going to get. You're going to get decent at best. But you bring in a Case Keenum or Nick Foles, and you're most likely going to get decent. But there is a slim chance that you're going to get magic in a bottle, that you're going to get fireworks, that this guy's just going to explode on the scene and just change everything. And that's the risk you got to take. You got to do it. You cannot settle for an at best of decency. You need to take a risk here because your season's on the line. Those are my two guys. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Minnesota Tim Podcast. I appreciate it. Follow, rate, review, share this podcast. Thank you for watching on YouTube if that's where you're watching. Thank you for listening on Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you're listening. I greatly appreciate it. Rate, review, subscribe. That'd be greatly appreciated. Everyone have a great day.